Welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, episode 165. Today on the podcast, Jen interviews Patrick von Pander about why 80% of business people miss 80% of their opportunities. This is because 80% of business people are still waiting for opportunity to knock, while opportunity decided a few years ago to contract out that part of its work to a call center and is actually on the other end of that unknown number they're screening. Now, instead of opportunity knocking once, it just keeps calling during dinner forever.
Hey, this is Jen Swanson. Welcome to episode 165 of the Careers by Jen podcast. It is March 1st. I can't believe it. And there is snow and rain, and even with all of that, the bulbs are trying to poke out through the ground. And so I know that spring is coming. It's just not here yet. And those dreaded groundhogs back in February predicted that it would carry on, and it's true, it's carrying on. I'm excited to be here where it's warm and cozy to bring you a conversation that I had earlier this week with Patrick von Pander. Patrick is a master certified business corporate and life coach. He's a speaker and a trainer, and he's had a lot of experience in the business world and working with business people. And so if you are an entrepreneur, or if you are in sales or working in an industry where you have to sell or offer services to people, then you'll want to listen up, because Patrick has a lot of great advice for us today. Before we jump right into that, if you are looking for a job, or if you are looking to transition from the job that you're in now or the career that you're in now to something new, I'd like to remind you or invite you, if you haven't listened before, that we have a 5-day Jumpstart Your Job Search Challenge that is absolutely free. It's on the website at careersbyjen.com. You can look on the right-hand side, and there's a picture of me looking up, pointing at some words. And if you click on that, you will be registered into the 5 days of emails that will come to your inbox. And each of these emails contains a task for you to complete, so that by the end of the 5 days, you are in a much better position to start your job search in earnest. It's absolutely free. It's a motivational series, 5 days, and something for you to do each day to get you positioned to jump right into that job search. So if that's you or someone you know, come on over and check that out, and that is there for you to try. All right, I'm going to turn you over to this conversation that I had with Patrick von Pander. I hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. And today I am very pleased to bring you Patrick von Pander as our special guest.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
You know what? I found Patrick through LinkedIn because a few episodes ago I did an episode all about how to up your game with your LinkedIn. And I noticed Patrick's profile in LinkedIn was done so well. And it was a perfect example of what I was trying to talk about in that episode. And that's how I found Patrick. And I think I sent you a note that said, you did, your profile is great, how you did it. And I think that's how we started connecting.
And by the way, on my side, flattery will get you just about everywhere. So I was all good with that when you reached out.
Yeah, it was good. So today we're going to talk about why 80% of business people miss 80% of their opportunities. And before we jump into that topic, I'd like to know a little bit about you, Patrick. How did you come to be doing all the stuff? You do a lot of stuff, all the stuff that you do.
Yeah, well, after doing what my parents in my generation said we should all be doing if we weren't going to be farmers, because I was born and raised a farm boy in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia here in Canada. And so off to the city I went, to get an education and go into the corporate world. And after 18 years in the corporate world, having worked in the consumer packaged goods field and then in the telecom field in the 90s, with the dot-com meltdown, I was just looking for a change. I'm the kind of personality that when you master something, I get bored.
I get it.
Yeah, so I was looking for a change, but I didn't know what that was. And I happened to be put on to this new and up-and-coming profession by one of the first ever life coaches in the Vancouver area. And I had so much vacation time built up there in my corporate job, because I'm the type of person that doesn't really know how to vacation very well. I don't sit still very well. So I took a week off and went down to a coaching conference and convention down in Las Vegas, put on by really the father of the modern coaching movement, Thomas Leonard, who's got a storied history. And I just caught a vision when they were, there was a life coaching piece, and then there was a business and corporate and executive coaching piece. And when they laid out what they were doing on the business side with Fortune 500 companies and with executive teams and CEOs and C-suite people and seminars and workshops, oh my God, I just caught a vision for that. And it mashed two of my favorite things together. It mashed together people, who I love, and business. And it mashes the two together. And I just went, this is what I want to go forward with. So Thomas Leonard just happened to be turning his certification program into an online, distance learning format using teleclasses at the time, because we didn't have webinars and this sort of technology that we have now. And I took my way through the 9-month certification program and became essentially a corporate refugee. I took a package, a big bag of money to leave the corporation, and ventured into working with small business owners and professionals, some corporate teams as well. I've worked with over 800 business people on a one-on-one basis over the last 15 years, and over 50 different corporate teams, leadership, sales teams, service teams. And I just love helping people be at their best personally and professionally. And it's been just a tremendous learning experience for me personally. And part of the reason why I loved going into this field was the whole prospect that I couldn't master it, that there's no possibility. Maybe this sounds twisted to some people, but there's no possibility that I could learn everything there is about what makes us human. And that was actually oddly and maybe twistedly a little attracting to me, because it sets me on a path to just learn for the rest of my life.
I love it, because I'm a lifelong learner. And when the podcast used to be called Communication Diva, that was so tongue in cheek, because you cannot be a diva of communication, and because you can mess it up even if you have 15 degrees in it. So I completely resonate with that idea that there's always something to learn in this communication and people business.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So that's great. I can hear the passion in your voice, and it's so evident.
Oh, you noticed that, hey?
So evident. So the title of the show today intrigues me. Why 80% of business people, miss 80% of their opportunities. Let's jump into that.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So this really resonated for me. About 4 or 5 years, I came across a major study. A lot of what I do is I work with probably 75 to 80% of my clients are freelancers or professionals trading their time for money in some way, either in the world of billable hours or in the fee-for-service arena. And it's about filling your business with profitable clients. And so I'm deep into the marketing strategy and habits, sales strategies and habits genre. And I came across this study. And in this study, they took a really wide sample, like it was tens of thousands of people. And the primary thing that they were studying, that they were looking to learn from the study, is how many communication interactions does it take before somebody makes a purchasing decision? How many conversations and communications interactions? And what they found what they found out, and by the way, just to give you some background, it wasn't just one type of purchase. They were measuring purchases of products and on the other end, services. Some were low value, some were super high value. Some were commodity, simple offerings. Some were really complicated, integrated, complex kind of offerings. So a real wide spectrum across a real wide spectrum of products and services and industries. And so for me, that felt super relevant. And there could be some lessons drawn from this. And here's what they found. They found that the number of people who had made their purchasing decision after just one communication interaction was 2%. Only 2%. The percentage of people who made their purchasing decision after 2 communications was an additional 3%. For a cumulative total of 5% so far. The percentage of people who made their purchasing decision after 3 communication interactions was another 5%, for a total cumulative of 10%. 3 communications and less than 1 in 10 people had made their purchasing decision. On the 4th, after the 4th communication, another 8% had made their purchasing decision. So are you seeing a trend here too?
I know what I'm doing wrong now.
So every time you have an additional communication, the actual percentage that converts goes up. 4 communications and interactions, and still less than 1 in 5, only 18%, had made their purchasing decision. And what they found was that over 80% of the purchases were made between the 5th and 12th communication. So that was really revealing for me. Now, they did a secondary piece to the study. Would you be interested in knowing what that second piece was?
Absolutely.
Thank you. They measured how many times a business person, any type of business person, which by the way included in the big spectrum of things, even salespeople, how many times they actually followed up with a prospect, an opportunity. And what they found was 25% of business people did not even follow up once.
Really?
Those 25% of people had a 1 in 50 chance of actually making a deal happen or making a purchase happen.
That's amazing.
They found that 44% of all business people in the survey stopped doing follow-ups after 3 follow-ups.
That makes sense. Yeah, I get it.
And 44% had made just one follow-up, and over 80% never even followed up more than 3 times. They dropped it after the 3rd follow-up. And so that's where the math follows out with this, that there's actually 80% of the opportunities are left unfulfilled. The purchases have not been done, and the majority, over 80% of the business people, are not doing the follow-ups past the 4th communication, which is where over 80% of the business lives.
That's fascinating, and that makes sense. I guess for me, it's when do you stop bothering people?
And in my coaching work, that's the number one pushback that I find. The way that most people word it to me is, Patrick, I don't want to be a pest.
Right.
Right. And I don't know if that's like just a Canadian thing or whether that's a North American thing or it's universal, but I don't want to be a pest. And so here's what I would share with you about that. If you don't want to be a pest, then don't be a pest. But don't decide for the person that you are a pest. I think that's egotistical to think that you get to decide that for the other person.
I love that. Okay.
Who are you to decide that for the prospect? they may really benefit from what you have to offer. So either you don't truly believe in what you're offering, or you don't have maybe the self-esteem or the self-concept or the self-confidence to be able to do the follow-up. And maybe you're not putting in the work to be creative enough to do the follow-up in a way that's going to be easily received and professionally received. But be professional about it. So I have an approach that I share when I do this presentation in public, when I have associations. In fact, I just did a professional, I was at a conference this past weekend where there was a whole group of doctors of optometry, and we talked about this topic. And we talked about a strategy and approach for how to not be a pest and still be able to do the follow-up and the follow-through.
Okay, I'm listening.
All right. Yay. So I call this the increasing interval approach. The increasing interval approach. And here's what that looks like. The first follow-up that you do when a prospect first shares their interest, you do within one business day, 24 hours ideally. And you make that follow-up very brief. Maybe just a simple acknowledgement of the fact that you connected with that person, or a quick thank you for their interest, and that you'll get back to them with more detailed information or links. You don't want it to be a whole sales pitch that reads like chapter and verse with tons of information and links that will put them off because they either don't have the time or the inclination to do that, and say to themselves, oh, I'll get to that later, and then later never really comes. And so that first interaction, you want to show respect for their time, but you also want to show that you care and that you're professional, and have that first follow-up be very brief. Hey, Jen, great meeting you. Great enjoying the podcast yesterday. I'm looking forward to crossing paths with you again soon.
Right.
Something really brief, right? And quite frankly, if I add another little bit of a dimension to this, I don't know what form of communication they necessarily prefer, whether it's texting, whether it's a Facebook chat, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, voicemail message. So actually, if I have multiple forms of communication, I put them all out there as a quick reminder, but keeping each one brief, and they respond typically with the form of media that they prefer. So if I send all of that out and they email me back, I kind of know that they prefer email. If they text me back, I know that that's their preferred form of communication. Now, it may not be their preferred communication forever, but it's their preferred communication until they show me otherwise.
Excellent.
And so it gives me a bit of a clue. Now, if you have not heard back from them after you reached out, if they haven't reached back on that first communication, then 2 to 3 business days after your first follow-up is when you want to do your second follow-up. This one you can be a little more detailed. Hey, I know you might be busy, but I wanted to reach back and just connect with you, find out a little bit more about what it is that you want or need, or maybe give them a bit of an information link or something that maybe relates to the first time you connected with them, or they expressed an interest in what you've got to offer. So that second follow-up should happen 2 to 3 business days after the first, if you have not heard back from them. If you have heard back from them, just engage in the conversation. You've got it rolling. If you still haven't heard back from them, then the third follow-up should be about a week after the third follow-up. So see how the time frames, the intervals between the follow-ups are increasing. This works best. It works a heck of a lot better than the stalkerish approach of going every day, right? That's just going to be off-putting for a lot of people.
And I signed up for a newsletter once from somebody, a big famous person who's online and does a whole lot of stuff. And And it's the stalker approach that has completely turned me off, so much so that I don't read any of his emails. And
Yeah.
I have unsubscribed about 4 times, and I'm still getting emails.
Ugh,
And
it's
it's
the worst.
infuriating. And this is like a big guy who's got books and is a big deal. And I'm so turned off by it that I don't know.
Yeah. It's just not connecting with what's maybe happening. Either that or the numbers of people who are responding is so overwhelming that you become the outlier for them as a big player. So either they're just not really in tune with what's going on, or it's so inconsequential to the bigger number for them that they're fine with that, and just probably who knows, maybe they just consider you collateral damage.
I'm sure. I mean, it's such a big organization, and there's probably a lot of people doing the stuff, the social media stuff. But when you unsubscribe multiple times,
I know that should be a red flag
yeah,
somewhere, right? So they're not tracking that as a metric. Either that or they just don't care,
right, right,
which is sad,
yeah, yeah,
unfortunate. So so that takes us through to the third follow-up. If you still haven't heard from the person back, then the fourth follow-up should happen about 2 weeks after the third follow-up. Again, increasing that interval. And what I find by the time, so two things, by the third and fourth follow-up, there's a bit of a dynamic that happens. First of all, you want to be more creative. You don't want to follow up with the same message, the same wording, the same crafted message. You want to mix things up, and maybe you even preempt them from feeling like you're a pest by incorporating that into your scripting. And one of the things that I share with my clients is by the fourth or fifth follow-up, just say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be a pest, but I do want to be professional. And you really seem sincere about wanting more information or doing work with me or learning more. And I want to be able to connect you with that. So I hope that we can connect. And you just sort of preempt that whole feeling that way, and you incorporate it into an awareness, a level of awareness that you know what's going on. By the third, fourth, fifth follow-up, the other dynamic that starts to happen is they start to realize, oh my God, Jen or Patrick, they're going to keep on following up. So I probably am best to just return the call. I should have done that a while ago. And their whole demeanor and attitude and energy changes, and they usually reach back, whether it's by email or text or phone, and they're almost trying to make it up to you for not having gotten back to you. And you know what? They're going to give you whatever the reason is, and you just be fine with it, right? Oh, I was so busy, or I had this project going, or I was out of town on business, or I was away on vacation. So sorry that I didn't get back to you. I've been meaning to get back to you. It is important. And now you just pick up the conversation. And so long as you're gracious about it, it's going to move forward, and it's almost like you're in a better position at that point. But there's a whole psychology around this that really plays out in an interesting way when you get to that third, fourth, fifth follow-up, where they realize that you're persistent in a professional way.
Right. So if you're listening to this and you're a salesperson, or you're in a service industry or an industry where you are connecting in this way, I guess I wonder if companies have limits. How often are you able to follow up? Are there guidelines that sometimes would not allow this kind of method to work?
Yeah, I'd be interested in learning that as well. I haven't heard that. It's typically the opposite. It's that there's not enough follow-up going on. By about the fifth or the sixth, you go into a monthly frequency, and if they haven't reached out to you by the sixth, seventh, and eighth, that's a good time to be able to pivot into automating that follow-up, maybe in if possible, in some sort of mechanized or automated technology that allows you to do the follow-up for you. And this is part of the reason why social media can be great because by posting, right, it's almost like that reminder out there, and it keeps you top of mind and keeps you connected that way. The thing that I find is most unfortunate is that you lose momentum and you lose that top of mind awareness within those people that you've connected with in the past. So the lesson through all of this is there is an approach that gets you to where you want to be. The gold is in the follow-up. And that's really the bottom line here for this lesson is 80% of business people, they miss out on 80% of their opportunities because they don't follow up. Now, how it might translate, you do Careers by Jen podcast, and you've got a website for this. This approach, maybe with some tweaks, could absolutely apply in the workplace. I mean, if you really feel like you are deserving of a raise or extra benefits or extra, how many times do you ask? Do you follow up? Do you follow up asking for that extra week's vacation or that pay raise or that other perk that really is meaningful for you that you're not going back and asking?
I'm thinking of kids, so can I, mom? Can I, dad?
They go from 1 to the 12th follow-up in such a compressed period of time, right? And somehow we've lost connection with how that works in adulthood.
That's so true. That's all I can, if there's something on their mind and they want to talk about it and you're like, I'm busy making dinner, talk to me later, right? Okay, can I?
Yeah. Now, the distinction is that I don't think that they necessarily are so tuned into the, or whether or not they're personally invested in whether or not they're a pest or not. They're just completely binary, right? They're just focused on the end result, whatever it takes. I'm going to wear mom or I'm going to wear dad down.
That's right. Isn't that funny? But that's true.
Yeah, maybe that's why we as adults are so sensitive to not being a pest.
Right. Well, and also there's that, I walk into a store and somebody says, "Hey, how you doing?" I know they're making the connection. They've been told they have to do that. And then they come along. "Can I help you? Is there anything I can do?" "No, it's okay. I'm just looking." And sometimes that works. And sometimes they come back again. And sometimes if they come back again, I'll say, "Okay, well, yes, can you do this?"
Yes.
But it's, I wonder if we've sort of been conditioned in some way to not want to be sold to.
Well, here's something. Now you're really in my wheelhouse now.
Oh, good.
So when it comes to this, and I've done tons of sales training, I do believe two things. I do believe that most people do not like to be sold. Simultaneously, I also believe that most people love to buy.
Yes. So
instead of us being great salespeople, we should let go of our attachment to being that. And why not have you become a masterful facilitator of other people's buying process? See, when it's about sales, it's about us.
Right.
When it's about the buying process, it's about who you're serving.
Right. And that's how I frame it for myself. I serve people. Yeah.
It's a subtle distinction for big effect.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I have online courses that I offer, and lots of people have bought them and come by and done things, and then coaching and doing things with resumes and interview skills and that kind of thing. And it lights me up when I help people, when I teach them, when I serve them, when I coach them. And I love that part of it. The part of it that's hard is the part of putting it out there all the time, that it's available.
Well, here's the mindset that I like to come from on this. If you don't put yourself out there, how are the people and businesses that could ideally benefit from what you have to offer, how are they going to find you?
Exactly.
You've got to make yourself visible from that perspective, right? And so for you to decide what that's going to look like for them, and you know what? It's not just when you're visible to them, it's the timing too. When I do this presentation and training, the why 80% miss out on 80% of their opportunities, I also share a little bit of an exercise. I take out a deck of cards and I have somebody in the audience shuffle them, and then I get them to hand over to someone they don't know in the room to cut the deck and then hand it to me. And I say, I'm going to start flipping these cards over. We can't see them. They're all face down. So maybe for your audience, you can visualize this for yourself. Visualize a shuffled deck of cards. And what we want is we want to just start turning them over because we don't know which of them have the opportunities. And what we're looking for is the aces. The aces are representative of those people or those businesses or those entities that we're a right fit for, our offering is a right fit for, and at the same time, it's a right timing for them. The kings, the queens, and the jacks are representative of those people or businesses that are a right fit for us, but the timing isn't quite right. So when we come across them, where do they go? They go into the follow-up file. And then the rest of the cards are, the face cards, they're just not a right fit. And so we just want to make our peace mentally with the fact that not everyone is a right fit for us. In fact, truth be told, most of us couldn't serve everyone anyway. We just don't have the capacity. Jen, you don't have the capacity with your setup right now to serve everyone in the world.
No, that's why we pick a niche.
Right? Yeah. And so it's this sorting process. And so when you think about it, it starts to become a bit of a numbers game. And from a mindset perspective, we should just let go of the romantic attachment of everyone that we speak with or that we interact with having to say yes, because that's just unrealistic. I mean, in every deck of cards, how many cards are there?
Right. 52.
Jen?
52.
Close.
54.
54, because there's always a couple of jokers in the deck. And we want to treat those jokers accordingly, right? We do not want their point of view to be credible or become part of our own self-worth, right? We'll just discard those as we come across them. So you know what? The numbers are such that you're going to have 4 chances in 52 in a deck of cards, and you want to have your deck be as full as possible, or maybe go even into one of those casino card shoes, right, that has 4 decks in it. So first, you want lots of opportunity, have that deck be as big as possible, and then just go through the sorting process and not be romantically attached to the outcome of every one. As I turn over the cards in this exercise, the likelihood of that first card being an ace is really low. And so, statistically, it's going to take 13 cards before we get our first ace. I've had instances where it came up as soon as the second card. I've had one instance where it ended up being the 25th card. And you know what? You keep flipping over cards, and those cards are representative of maybe every one of them is a suspect or a prospect. And sometimes you may get a payoff soon. Other times you may go through a real long dry spell, but you keep going.
Right.
Because that there's aces in the deck, and every one that you turn over puts you 1 card closer.
So it's persistence. Persistence is the name of the game.
100%. 100%.
So if somebody has not been used to following up, or you talked earlier about the approach being people don't approach people enough. They stop after, what did you say, 2 or 3 times? They stop. 44% of people stopped after the first follow-up. Oh, right. At the first
one follow-up, and they're done. Oh, I guess they don't want it, right? Or they don't want it right now, and they let go of it. 80% didn't even follow up after 3 follow-ups. And that's where more than 80% of the business lives. And so guess what? Disproportionately, the people that do the follow-up, they win.
So if somebody is not used to doing that or doesn't have that any systems in place to do that, what is your first advice for them?
My first advice is that I have yet to have come across somebody who has died from following up. So there's a 100% survival rate. Okay, like so it's not that risky.
I like that. Oh, that's good. So, so that's your first piece of advice. Do you have another one? I'll ask for one more piece of advice.
Yeah, you know what? It's like with anything. There's an old saying, repetition is the mother of skill. You know, I remember one of my favorite sports through my life has been basketball. And when I think back to the first time I grabbed a basketball and heaved it towards a basket, I mean, it was a screaming hot mess, right? It was terrible. Yeah. But you know what? Then I picked the ball back up again and I threw it again and it got a little bit better and a little closer to the rim and then a little closer. It's like with anything. You want to get better, you want to do it more often. Just don't be attached to the outcome, to the early going. Know that it'll suck before it'll get really good.
Right. And it's not personal rejection either.
And that's the key, right? And that's why I want to give the deck of cards example. It's not a reflection on you personally. And that's why I don't want anyone to be I mean, you want to do business and you want to serve, but to be emotionally and romantically attached to the outcome of any one interaction or communication, that's heavy and it's not realistic. Right. So just treat it like a sorting process and it'll work out better for you. You'll just feel better and it'll work for you better. People pick up on it. If you come across as really needing to get that deal happening or get that yes, it's less likely to happen because people smell that desperation. You know, it's just like the dating process. Somebody who's needy or clingy, not as attractive, generally speaking.
I love it.
So be that attractive. You know what? The distinction I'll share with you, Jen, is don't need it, right. Want it. That's the distinction, right? In my career, even in my sales career in the corporate world, my readiness and willingness to walk away from any potential deal at any point of time actually made more deals happen than I lost.
I can see that because if you have somebody following you around hanging on every single thing you pick up, that's a turnoff.
Yes. When they start like really negotiating hard with me on price or whatever, or trying to squeeze out extra stuff and I've got no more room to go, look, you know what? I understand what you're trying to do. This is, I believe that it's the best value. We're the best value. I really want your business, but if I don't get your business, that's fine. We don't need it. I've got other deals that my team can work on, and my fridge is going to still be well stocked. I'm not going to starve. I'm still going to sleep all right. I just believe that this is the best value for you. And being able to walk away just basically deflates that whole piece of leverage that they, on the other side, will sometimes try to leverage. And yeah, it's just more comfortable. Want it, but don't need it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Patrick. And if people want to know more about you and find you, where can they do that?
You can find me on my website, bigpicturecoach.com. For people that are interested in a complimentary introductory coaching session, I've got a URL, which is haveyourbestyearever.com. And there's a short survey that you can fill out and then set out choose which date and time preference works best for you and what kind of media you want to engage in for us to connect with. Bigpicturecoach.com, that's my main website, BIGPICTURE. coach.com, bigpicturecoach.com, because it's all about the big picture.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm sure that the listener has gotten lots of good advice, and I know I have. And we'll look forward to connecting with you again.
Thank you so much, Jen. You really make this fun.
Oh,
this was
good. Good. So that was my interview with Patrick von Pander, and he's energetic and full of all sorts of fabulous information, and I hope that you got a lot out of that interview. If you'd like to come on over to careersbyjen.com to episode 165, you'll see the show notes there. You'll see a picture and links to Patrick's information, and I hope that you check out all that we've got going on the website as you come on over, and do share this episode if you know somebody else who could use this information that Patrick was sharing today. All right, until next time, take good care. This is Jen Swanson. We'll talk soon.